My daughter did work. Right.
Yes. Okay. So thank you guys. We will probably wrap up around 3 on Tuesday. We did wrap up. I think it may have been 3:15, but I think we can get through this. I like to start out with just introducing myself. So I'm our program director for the Homes for All AmeriCorps program. I have been with HHCK since 2019, and this is my family. So if I'm not working, these are the folks that I'm with. They keep me busy, and we have fun time. Those are my kiddos and my husband. At this point, you guys have my email address, but that's always a good way to connect with me. And then the phone number listed is my direct office number. So you can call or text message that number and it will come directly to my phone. So that's how like members contact me, site supervisors. Yeah. So thanks again for joining us, and I look forward to working with you all over the next program year. And so we'll get started. First thing that I like to share is just the way that we say AmeriCorps. I know that it has that P and that S at the end, but think of it like Peace Corps, Apple Corps, Core of the Earth, Marine Corps. I think that's just something that happens often, and I totally get it. When I was joining AmeriCorps 10 years ago as a member, I definitely wasn't for sure on how to pronounce it. And so, yeah, we just want to make sure we are representing and saying the program correctly. Um, so that's our little, we used to share this little picture. It was like a little zombie, and it's like we're not dead, we're alive because a lot of times it does get called AmeriCorps. So at least I stopped sharing that. um, an overview of AmeriCorps. So AmeriCorps has been federally funded, and it is a national service program since 1994. Um, Here in the state of Kentucky, our program, the Homes for All program, we have been around since 1994. We're the longest standing operating AmeriCorps program for Kentucky, and we take a lot of pride in that. Um, we are supported by Serve Kentucky, the state service commission. Serve Kentucky, their team, they're housed within the Cabinet for Health and Family Services. So they administer and help us administer all of our federal funding that comes from AmeriCorps at the federal level. They're also the team that works with programs to ensure that program staff understand and are compliant with federal regulations and policies and procedures. They connect with AmeriCorps members throughout the year to hear what kinds of services they are doing with their programs that they're serving with. They like to talk to them about like their experience in the program and with AmeriCorps. So they're really small but mighty team. Um, there are right now 19 AmeriCorps programs in Kentucky. Um, there are several AmeriCorps programs that are working within school systems around the state. Homes for All, we're the only Kentucky program that has that primary focus of housing and homelessness. And our goal for not only the current program year, but for next program year, we hope to serve 800 individuals. And of those 800 individuals, we hope that 300 of those transition or maintain safe, affordable housing. Um, we'll get into detail as to like what that means and stuff in a little bit, but I think that it's just something to know as we go along today. Our positions within our program, we break them down into three. types of positions just based on the types of organizations that we partner with across the state. So we have some construction positions within our program. Our members will be working alongside that construction crew. So maybe they're doing a new home build or a repair project, or repair project. We serve or we partner with homeless services organizations. So maybe they are working with individuals who are experiencing homelessness, street homelessness, and working to get them into permanent supportive housing. And then the third one is housing services. Some of the organizations that we partner with are working with households that are getting to that home ownership status. And so, yeah, depending on where you are serving, you'll see on the member's position description these terms that I just went over. Um, Something that you will hear me say a lot today is just the term of service or the program year, which starts on September 1st and ends on August 31st. And the types of positions that we have within our program are 1,700-hour positions and 900-hour positions. And so we consider that 1,700-hour position full time, and then 900 a part time. So we'll get into that a little bit later too, but that's just kind of like an overview for now, and then we'll kind of dive more into it as we go on. Um, the next slide, I just wanted to show you guys organizations that we are partnering with for the upcoming program year. So you, I'm sure, see the organization that you work for on here. We really prioritized our current partnerships that we have for the 25-26 program year, just with there being a little bit of just not really some unknowing of what funding was going to look like for the 26-27 program year, right? And we thankfully were funded at the level that we applied for. So, with that, if you know of any housing organizations or organizations that have a housing component that could really benefit from partnering with our program and hosting an AmeriCorps member, help me make that connection, because we do have a few positions still available. We just didn't know at the time that we released our application for organizations what funding was really going to look like at the time. But as you can see, we are statewide. We go all the way to McCracken, to Perry. So, yeah. I'm going to close my office door really quickly, and then we'll start chit chatting. Okay, sorry about that. So some language that you've probably caught on to me saying is what we're going to cover next. There is a big change, and it's really a hard one for me, but going into the new program year, we no longer call a person serving in an AmeriCorps program an AmeriCorps member. It's now an AmeriCorps volunteer with a capital V. That's a huge change, because it's just always been an AmeriCorps member. So if you hear me say member or volunteer, essentially we are talking about the person that is serving in this position with the Homes for All program, who is serving with your organization. So I had been saying member, I'm now switching over to volunteer, but correct me, because again, I've been saying member since I was a member 10 years ago. So it's going to be a difficult change, but we will definitely get there. And if this is your first year supervising an AmeriCorps volunteer, then this will be the way that you've learned about the program. Um, the next term that we use is the term of service. So that is the person's term that they will be serving for the program year. So most, you know, in a perfect world, all of our AmeriCorps volunteers start on that September 1st start date of the program year and go through August 31st of 27. But sometimes maybe recruitment is a challenging. So when we think of term of service, we think of that person's start date to their end date. Again, usually the end date is that last day of the program year. But term of service, yeah, like you'll hear that. You'll hear that a lot. You'll see that a lot on documents. Um, Living allowance. So, because this is not an employment position, AmeriCorps volunteers receive a living allowance that is deposited every other Friday during the program year from HHCK. So, our office handles the payment schedule, taxes, payroll, all of that, direct deposit information, bank information. But yeah, we just don't refer to it as like a stipend or a paycheck. It is considered their living allowance. We never use the words hire, work, intern, or employee. A lot of times, and this is one of the successes of our program, a lot of times our AmeriCorps volunteers are hired into a full-time position after a year or years of service with our program. But for right now, while they're in this very unique position, those are just some words that we like to stay away from. Okay, we're going to go on now to what partnering with the Homes for All program and partnering with the Homeless and Housing Coalition looks like. So at the program level, these are the things that I am doing in my position. So we are administering the federal grant. So we're making sure that our AmeriCorps program is compliant with those federal regulations and state regulations that are put in place for AmeriCorps programs. I'm completing all of the necessary background checks to get your volunteers cleared to start at your organizations. We are training and completing an orientation with our volunteers. I put at large there because when we do our orientation, we are focusing on the program side of the training. So like under making sure that our volunteers understand our policies and procedures for the year, our standards of conduct, what prohibited activities are, what's allowable versus not allowable. So that's why I say at large. And because we have members that are doing a wide variety of services, those more direct service task orientation and training will come at the site level. We do encourage personal and professional development throughout the person's year with our program. And I report on our program goals and the just ongoing progress to AmeriCorps at the federal level and serve Kentucky at the state level. And in partnership, we are making sure that our volunteers are eligible and enrolled to begin service. So the onboarding time during like recruitment and just getting a person started, we're going to be talking a lot, making sure that you know, we have everything that we need. Everybody's on the same page with when the person's going to start and everything like that. So we'll be talking pretty regularly at the beginning of the person's time and before the program year begins. At the site level, you will supervise and mentor your volunteer or volunteers if you have more than one position. So that's like the day-to-day supervision. We're guaranteeing the volunteer safety and supporting the goals of our program as a whole. So next we'll talk about the partner site's role and your key responsibilities. So again, providing quality supervision and mentorship. And the reason why I mentioned that is because sometimes when people come into an AmeriCorps position, this may be their first professional type of position, or sometimes people are getting into an AmeriCorps position because they are making some type of change in their professional career. And so maybe housing and understanding housing and what that really looks like is just a completely new field for them. So that's why quality supervision is really tied to the completion and just the overall experience that the person has with the program. Making sure that our volunteers have the things that they need to be successful. So if your position is more of an office type position, making sure they have the space, the supplies, the equipment, access to um, internet, things like that, phones, um, any other types of office supplies that may be needed. And then on the flip side of that, if it is a construction position, making sure that they have that type of equipment that's going to be needed to successfully do that construction position. Um, there are some there's going to be some data that your volunteer is going to be collecting over the next year when they are serving. And so making sure that you support that, allow the volunteer time and space to complete that paperwork that will be due monthly. We'll talk about it later. Um, Anytime there's any questions or concerns, just holler at me. I'm pretty easy to get in touch with. You can again reach me by phone, email, text. If you don't hear from me the first time you call, I promise I'll call you back. Um, just supporting the overall goals of our program and the development of your volunteer, and making sure that the volunteer has the sufficient opportunity to complete their term of service and required hours. And so I have listed at least 37 and a half hours per week because the majority of our positions this year are 1,700. And we've really worked it out that if a person sticks to that 37 and a half hour week, they're going to successfully meet their term or their hour requirement, and also be able to like take time off, observe holidays, and things like that. If your organization operates on a 40-hour work week, then we would also expect that to be the weekly schedule that your member serves. Okay. So next we're going to move right into recruitment and finding a volunteer to serve in the position that you have available at your organization. Um, so advertising and interviewing, I did send out a guidance, or I did send out guidance. It was a recruitment PDF on June 22nd, was just kind of, it goes into detail of like responsibilities, the timeline, and everything like that. By the by the end of the week, I will have positions posted on several platforms. So my AmeriCorps is a website that is operated and maintained by AmeriCorps at the federal level, but we always, and we are required to list a program listing opportunity. So I do that. And then within your Partner site agreement, nope. In your partner site applications, you indicated if you would like for me to post your specific position or positions on Indeed or Kentucky Nonprofit Network. So I will be doing that. I'm doing that over the course of this week, but they will be posted by tomorrow for sure. So you'll see those live. As we receive applications, I shouldn't say we, I am screening the applicants for their eligibility. Today I spent time gathering some of the applications that I've received from our Google form, which is so great. So I've been able to send some general applicants to sites in some of the areas of the state, which is again really cool. I'm happy to do that. For you as the partner, we hope that you are advertising and interviewing suitable applicants that maybe have reached out to your organization directly because of the postings that you at the organization have put out there, or whoever does that within your organization. We hope that you are sharing information about AmeriCorps and the Homes for All program. Your advertising post, we hope that the AmeriCorps logo is on there. There is a recommendation form. I don't need it for returning members, but for new members, this is their first time serving with our program, there is a candidate recommendation form and I will send it out tomorrow, actually, once we get through our trainings. But when you are ready to recommend a person to fill your position, I like to have that form because it has program specific questions about like the living allowance amount, trainings that may happen throughout the year, the education award, what type of supervision they like. And so it just gives me an idea of how things are going to go. And also, I think it's a really good opportunity for you to incorporate those questions into your interview process. So you're already kind of just like checking it off, and it has the person's contact information as well. I think it's important to know that if you want your person to start on September 1, they have to be recommended to me by August 12th. And that's because it can take like up to 2 weeks to get a person cleared to start service. And that's because of most of the time it's because of background checks and just getting them verified, or maybe there's issues at the location in their area. Sometimes those background checks have to get rescheduled and things like that. And so there's a lot of moving parts, and it does take some time. And there's also just one of me. So I appreciate everybody's patience. Sometimes there are challenges. Sometimes the AmeriCorps benefits can be a barrier. We understand that the living allowance is very modest. And so sometimes when people see advertising for our AmeriCorps positions, they can see how impactful they're going to be, but maybe they just don't necessarily understand the program and understanding that it's not like a full-time employment position yet. Sometimes ghosting happens. A lot of times that's when ghosting happens, is when they're like, yeah, this isn't going to work. And that's totally fine. And like I said, just like not understanding what the program or the position is there to do, and how it's not, a long-term position. Here is an idea. I made this Canva graphic for HHCK last year when we were advertising for our position that we like to have here at our office in Frankfort. And so, it has the AmeriCorps logo. It's got the little house on it. It's important to list the hour requirement that's tied to the position, the living allowance amount, what the education award amount is. SNAP benefits may be eligible to the person. Same with child care assistance. Those things are based on household income. And then who to contact if they're interested. So like submitting their resume, things like that, setting up a time to complete an in-person or phone interview. But yeah, this is just an example that you can do when you are posting on the platforms that you use. So this was something again like we used on Facebook and Instagram. Um, I also included a link. So I think it was about 3 years ago, AmeriCorps came to Kentucky and they used Kentucky AmeriCorps members to create promotional um, little videos and some marketing materials and things like that. So it's just a quick 30-second video, but I think that it's cool to share. You could share it with, someone that that you're interviewing for the position. And it's just really there for you to view anytime you want to. Okay, so we have moved on we have found our person that's going to serve in the AmeriCorps position. The next step is the paperwork and enrollment process. So for paperwork, the first step, so after you've interviewed and you have been like, yes, you've told me, yes, this is the person that we would like to fill this position. I'm going to reach out. If I don't have their application yet, I will ask them to complete our application Google form, and then we will move on to the electronic paperwork packet. So in that paperwork packet, it lists the person's volunteer service agreement. So it has their start date, end date. It lists all of our policies and procedures around the living allowance, time off, standards of conduct. I mean, everything. So they have all information up front when they are onboarding to start in the position. It has the consent form for criminal history, background checks, direct deposit, all of it. It's got all of it. So the person will complete that. Typically, I do send it through Signwell. Signwell is like DocuSign. But if the person would prefer for me to email the PDF and they print it out and they sign it and fill it out themselves and scan it back to me, we have the ability to do that as well. If the person wants me to mail it to them through the post office, we can do that as well. That step would obviously delay maybe the person's start date if there's just if we're in like that crunch time. But again, those are all three options to get that paperwork completed and back to me so that I can process it and we can get them set up into our account system here at HHCK. Then, like I said, once I get that paperwork and I get it processed, and they have given me consent to complete the background checks necessary to start. That's what I send them instructions on what I need from them to do. So there are 3 background checks that I have to complete and adjudicate before the person starts serving on site at your organizations. The first one is an FBI check. The second one is a National Sex Offender Public Registry check, a state of service. So, an AOC check or Administration Office of the Courts check. Or if they present an out-of-state ID, I would have to complete a state of residence check. So during this time is usually when there's kind of like we're in that holding period until I get the results back, can adjudicate them, and then we move on. So charges or convictions that would make someone ineligible to serve with Homes for All would be a sex offense or murder or a violent felony charge. Um, I just like to share that in case somebody has any questions about that. But yeah, um, let me see here. We pay for the background checks. If the person follows the step-by-step instructions that I send them, it gets charged to the card on file that is for HHCK. So, um, let me see here. So once we've got all of their paperwork, their background checks have came back cleared, I've adjudicated them, we move on to the enrollment form. Again, this is something that I work on with the person that's about to start. It's an electronic enrollment form that our grant system uses, that AmeriCorps uses essentially. And so the person completes it. It sends their information to the Social Security Administration, who then verifies their citizenship. And that's kind of that last step of completely being enrolled into the program. The first day of service means that's the first day hours can be served and should be served. So if we have all been in communication and you have gotten that cleared for service email from me, it's going to tell you exactly when that person can start serving hours. It cannot be before September 1st. So that's because that's when the program year starts. If there are delays on getting the person enrolled and onboarded, then maybe they might have like a September 5th start date. That's all information that's going to be communicated from me to you and the person that's serving in the position. If for some reason your member does not start service on the day that has been agreed upon, I need to know as soon as possible because their start date will need to change and we will need to update paperwork. That's all compliance policies that I have to follow. It's not something that like I'm just making up. The last day that I would feel comfortable enrolling a 1,700 hour volunteer would be like mid-October. That's really when we get to like that mid-October point, they really are going to need to be serving like 40 hours a week in order because that's a shorter term of service. It's, less than 12 months. And so I don't ever want to start someone in a position knowing that they're already going to be behind. So, and if for some reason we get to like that October point and your position is not filled yet, we can have a one-on-one discussion on what we can do. And then out of everything that I said, like I've mentioned, it can take up to a week, past a week, sometimes 2 weeks. I have onboarded someone as quick as 3 days. But again, a lot of this is also determined by the person completing the paperwork and everything. Okay, let's move on to orientation. So we've got through all of that onboarding. They've started. Now we're training them for their position. So hopefully before your volunteer arrives, you are explaining to other staff at your organization what the Homes for All AmeriCorps program is and what the role of the volunteer is. So like what they're going to be doing. If the position needs business cards, we ask that you order those again if you're able to, if it's needed for the position. create an email address for the AmeriCorps volunteer. I think that that's important if the position is working with confidential information, right? I do not think that your organizations would want something like that going to a volunteer's personal email address. It can be like a generic email address, maybe, AmeriCorps volunteer at hhck.org as just an example. But yeah, and then that way, um, if the person, serves for 1 year, you can then use that email address for the next, incoming AmeriCorps volunteer, things like that. Um, we hope that you are checking in with the person often, making sure that they know how to get to the office, where they need to park if there's tricky parking situations like in downtown Frankfurt. Um, and their expectations for the first day. I mean, I think the bare minimum is making sure that they know what time they should be arriving on site. And then obviously contact me if you have any questions or anything pops up before your member starts. Volunteer. Okay, so your person started, um, and you are thinking about what your orientation for the person is going to look like or for the position is going to look like. So maybe welcoming your volunteer, introducing them to other staff at your organization, giving them a tour of the office so they know, this is where the restrooms are, the break room, copier, office supplies, things like that. If you have a kitchenette, where, the kitchenette is, um, just like office logistics, where supplies and stuff are, parking, mail, we talked about those. If your organization supplies keys to the volunteer, making sure they have a key, if it's the key to their office door, for example, then that's what I'm referring to. And then you're going to move into the specific position training orientation. So I really hope that there's some thought put into the training, just having detailed on how to complete their responsibilities to make sure that the person feels successful and comfortable and confident in fulfilling the role for the next year. I think that sometimes challenges begin right there. Usually, challenges when they're brought to me at the program level, people do not feel like they have been trained in a way that sets them up for success for the position that they're in. I'm not saying that always happens, but sometimes it does. There will be a volunteer site and expectation agreement. This is something that I do require. It's kind of like that first line of documentation. It outlines the person's weekly schedule. It has a little chart at the top for like Monday through or Sunday through Saturday. Oh my gosh. And you're going to put the time in and time out so that right off the bat, you and your volunteer know what their weekly schedule is. There are some other parts to the form, just like how does the organization handle time off? You would write the expectation for what your volunteer would need to do. If it's a personal day off, they need to, you know, schedule that in advance with the site supervisor. If it's unexpected sick day, contacting the site supervisor as soon as they know that they're sick and they're not going to be able to be there. Things like that. But I think that it's good for just setting up the year and the position and the person for success. There's not any like gray areas of what is to be expected of them. Yeah. And then like through the first month, Their like training, hands-on training, webinars that are specific to the position, any types of readings that would be helpful, understanding maybe the policies and procedures there at the organization or the department that they're serving with. If there are any standing calls and meetings, you know, introducing the volunteer during those times, especially if they're going to be representing um, the organization or at some point. It might not be like right off the bat, but maybe, halfway through the year, I don't know, they're going to be representing your organization at like a tabling event or like a health fair or something like that. So just helping your volunteer feel welcomed and making those connections to other providers and resources in your community that they're going to be working with. We will be doing a orientation. I have not set the date yet, but it will be towards the end of September. I'll get that exact date to you guys very soon. It will be in Frankfurt. Um, Mileage reimbursement, meals, lodging will all be provided by the program. And during our 1 day together, we're going to be talking about AmeriCorps as a whole, understanding what this service commitment is, um, understanding what housing and homelessness, what those issues look like here in our state, the policies and procedures and prohibited activities of the Homes for All program and AmeriCorps. Um, some team building, nothing super silly or anything like that, but making connection with other people that are serving in our program. I think that that's a good time for this to happen, and it's early in the program year, so they can build or create some friendships and connections to last hopefully over the years. Okay, next we're going to move on to the volunteer service year. Okay, so you've heard me say term of service a million times, but it is very important. The program year does operate from September 1st to August 31st of 2027. Right now in our program, we have two different hour requirements. It's either a 1,700 hour requirement or 900 hour requirement. At this point, you guys do know what hour requirement you've been approved for. Um, that weekly schedule that your volunteer is going to be serving is going to be determined by you as the site supervisor and the volunteer. I say it must account for approximately 37 and a half hours per week because, 35 of our positions are 1,700 hours. So that full-time position. Again, if your organization operates on a 40-hour work week schedule, then I would say your volunteer would also be serving that amount as well. And this makes sure, again, that they stay on track with their hours and able to take time off, observe holidays. 900 hours, obviously that's more of a part-time if they start on September 1, right? If you get halfway through the program year, then 900 hours in 6 months is more of a full-time commitment. They would need to serve 37 and a half hours in order to meet that hour requirement. But if we get to that point, that's a conversation that me and that organization and site supervisor would be having conversations about. I think it's important to know that we've built in leave for both types of positions. So for a full-time position, they start their term with 10 personal days, 10 sick days. We observe 11 holidays in the full program year. 900 hour, it's 5 personal, 5 sick, 11 holidays, or whatever amount of holidays fall within their term of service. Um,
Okay.
so, oh, somebody have a question? Okay. These days are built into the schedule. So when a person takes a day off, it's not like there's going to be 7.5 or 8 hours that they would log as personal time or sick time to go towards their hour requirement. It is built into the schedule. It does not count towards that service hour requirement. But I promise you, if they stick to their weekly schedule, observe their holidays, it's it works out. Other member benefits. Oh, did you see that? That's supposed to say volunteer benefits. Man. Um, so the big one is the living allowance. That amount is for the full program year. So full time it's 20,400. 900 hours it's 10,200. So in the full program year, there are 26 pay periods. So if your member starts on September 1, their annual living allowance amount would be broken up into the 26 pay periods. In that enrollment packet that I talked about, there's a whole schedule. They're going to know every day that they're going to get their living allowance amount deposited into their bank account and what days for that pay period. Um, so we have thought that, if your member starts later in the year, then, if they start in October, then maybe their term of service or their living allowance is only divided between 24 pay periods. But again, all of that information is given to the person up front. There's nothing that they are not in the unknowns about. Um, Another huge benefit to an AmeriCorps position is that education award. So when the volunteer successfully completes their year or term of service, depending on the position type, they are awarded some money to go towards education expenses. It's not given to the person in the form of like cash or check. It is held within the National Service Trust Fund. I do a whole training in the summer with our members on how to access that, what it can be used for, like what those eligible expenses are, to name a few for you guys. It can be used to pay on federally backed student loans. It can be used to go to enroll in school at at a university college. It can be used to receive a certification. Yeah, and as long as it's with an institution that will receive federal money, they will typically also um, accept the education award. And like I said, we do a training with our members usually in June or July to go over that so that they feel prepared. And another thing to know about the education award, you have 7 years from the calendar year that you received it to use it. Um, this is a professional development opportunity as a whole, not only with the Homes for All program, but with your organization as well. For our full-time positions, we are able to offer health insurance. HHCK pays the full premium. So the volunteer will not see any type of anything be withheld from their living allowance for that. Um, if a 900-hour member is serving in a full-time capacity, so maybe it's that 6 month period for full-time in a full-time capacity, they would be eligible for health insurance. We offer the health insurance to volunteers who start their term without coverage, or if at some point, or if at any point in the year a volunteer loses their health care coverage, they can notify me and we can get them covered on our plan. We cannot offer health insurance for dependents or spouses. It is just for the person serving in the program. And it is just health insurance. We're unable to offer vision or dental. Child care assistance, AmeriCorps at the federal level offers child care assistance to individuals who are serving in a full-time capacity. AmeriCorps makes that determination. It is dependent on household income. HHCK holds a workers' compensation policy. Our members are covered on that. When a person's serving in the program, they can request to have their loans put into forbearance, so they're not having that extra payment maybe during their term of service, just because, you know, I understand that the living allowance is modest, and that was something that I did when I was in service, was I put those loans in forbearance, and I didn't think about that payment until I was done with AmeriCorps. And then we offer this, it's called the Volunteer Assistance Program. It was called the Member Assistance Program. This is operated by the American Service Commission. And it's offered to the person serving in a program and also their household members. So they offer free virtual mental health counseling. It's a really cool benefit. It's free to the person and their household to enroll. And again, we understand that service can be challenging, and it's just another support that we can offer to someone who's serving with us. They don't have to choose to enroll in it, but once a person gets started, that is part of our orientation. I just kind of go over what the volunteer assistance program is and how it could be beneficial to the volunteer in their house or family members. Another document that is completed by you and the member and me is the volunteer position description. So it really just outlines the term of service for the person, what allowable service activities are listed. It very much looks like a job description. It has the percentages for each allowable service activity that the position is going to do. This was part of that site application too. So I'll create the position description, and then once we get through that paperwork process, they will sign this before they start as well, or on their first day of service. 90% of those activities listed on the position description will be what the member is doing there at their site with you guys. And then we leave 10% for program activities so that they can participate in any trainings and events that we are hosting, the reporting component of our program, communicating with me throughout the year. It will also list like the minimum eligibility requirements and any essential functions that maybe you listed in your partner site application. So like being fully vaccinated with boosters for COVID-19. That's just an example. Of valid driver's license, things like that. Okay, timesheets. So your volunteer will be submitting timesheets to you weekly. We have to use a vendor that's approved by the federal agency AmeriCorps, and so we use a system called America Learns. This is a screenshot that I just took from a current member's dashboard, forgot what it was called, so that you can see like what your member sees and everything. So it tells them how they can reach 1,700 hours, I say stick to your weekly agreed upon schedule and you'll get there because that is going to fluctuate as the year goes on. It's going to show the person how many hours have been submitted, how many hours are remaining for the program year, any pending hours, time off will be listed as well. That's new and very helpful. If there are any pending timesheets, so that's kind of what their dashboard looks like. There's a phone app available for volunteers to submit their time to you. I ask that supervisors approve timesheets at least twice a month so that everybody's kind of staying on top. People know where they're at with their hours. Um, and yeah, I mean, we all have to submit timesheets, right? So you will receive an email when your member has submitted the timesheet to you. They cannot submit it to their supervisor until the pay period ends or that weekends, that timesheet period ends. Yeah. So our timesheets are usually from like Sunday to Sunday. So the following Monday, your member would be able to go in and submit it to you. They can work on it throughout that week. It just cannot be submitted to you until it's officially over. And that's just so that, you know, there are no errors that or falsification of time happens. Um, you have the ability to send timesheets back to the person if there are corrections that need to be made. When before the program year starts, if you are a new site supervisor, I will set you up at America Learns. So you will receive a welcome email and you will create your password and you can bookmark the website so that it's easy on your work computer for you to get to and log in and things like that. And if of course there's any kind of issue, I'm here to like walk you through those things. Um, so back whenever I was kind of going over like that first slide of just like a summary about AmeriCorps and Homes for All, I mentioned a goal of serving 800 individuals, right? 800 households. Um, that's that is one of our performance measures for the program year. Um, So your members will have a document that or documents that they will submit monthly on a monthly basis to me, so that they can stay on top of it. Um, and this is the type of information that's going to be collected on that report. Um, the number of individuals, so like the household size, the demographics. They're only going to be reporting on the families that they have meaningful engagement with. So if they work with someone, say somebody just walks in, asks a question, and then leaves, that's not somebody that your member is going to report on, right? Um, but if it is someone that they are actively working with, I think we can all understand what meaningful engagement means, and how to report that. Um, the number of individuals that are housed. So there's a second form. And again, that second form doesn't always get completed because for whatever reason it may be, you know, maybe a person, maybe your volunteer works with someone for a really long time, not a really long time, but maybe they work and they're working towards that housing goal and something happens and it just doesn't work. And that's real life, right? So maybe that second form isn't always completed. And I do a whole training about this with our members during our orientation. But they would list the proof of housing, or construction that was completed. So if it was a lease or a mortgage, they would check that off Of course, that it just really depends on the type of organization and position that your member is with. Um, and I never ask, I shouldn't say I never ask. I ask if I'm audited for those types of documents. So your member, meaning your member does not have to submit that signed lease to me. They are just completing this performance measure form, step one and step two, and sending it to me. I do not collect any confidential information. They make a code name for this specific household. If you are at an organization, like for example, if you use like HMIS and it generates like a case number or something for you, then that could be what your member uses as the identifier. Again, that's not going to be something, I'm never going to need the person's name, social security or number, anything like that. It's just helping us collect a little bit of information about the household that the member's working with. Um, it is the volunteer's responsibility to report and submit their performance measure reporting by the 15th of the month for the previous month. So, meaning October households would need to be sent to me by November 15th. And the 15th will be a date on or around the 15th will be a date that your volunteer just starts to know that that's a time that we're going to meet. And that's because on or around the 15th, depending on if it falls on a weekend, I meet with them virtually on Zoom the 15th of every month. And that's to talk about program updates, anything that's kind of going on, and provide some professional development during that time. I also plug in just a reminder, if you haven't completed your performance measures, send them in to me for the previous month. So it's not like a new date that they're going to have to remember. It'll all kind of be cohesive for the program year. My responsibility is to train your volunteers, and that's, during our orientation at the beginning of the program year, ongoing, so throughout the program year, and one-on-one if needed. I look at the reports regularly, and I submit our data collection to AmeriCorps and Serve Kentucky to show that our program is making an impact, and here are some numbers to back that. Site's responsibility, please allow your volunteers some time to work on reporting regularly so they don't become overwhelmed with the paperwork process, right? That is built into their position description. If they need 2 hours every Friday to kind of work on those, please allow them some time in their schedule to do that. What else? During check-ins, if you would like to incorporate a question about their performance measures to help them stay on track with them, that would be great too. Sometimes if a person is released or exits the program early, I may ask you for some missing data. Yeah. I'm sorry if you hear a train. There's a train coming through downtown Frankfort right now. Volunteer development. So this was written into our grant. It used to be called the Member Development Plan. Changed it to Volunteer Development Plan. But really the purpose of it is to encourage our volunteers to have that civic engagement mindset, to allow them to strengthen their civic engagement and being an active citizen within their communities. to help them participate in the program, but also even after the program. So there are really four main components of this. So MLK Day is a day of service for all AmeriCorps members and programs. We're typically out doing some type of community service on this day. And hopefully we will be getting back our program specifically to doing kind of like a larger MLK Day of Service project. Um, so that's to be determined a little bit later, but I'm thinking that it will be possible this year. The spring service project, that is a construction activity. Um, as you see, it's in the spring. This year we were in Paducah partnering with one of our construction partners. Um, so the majority of our positions are more office based. Um, so it is allowing our program and our volunteers to do that other side of our program, right? So working on a home, we're helping repair, whatever it may be, whatever type of project is needed for a household that our partners are working on. That's what we are there to do. And so I do the majority of the logistics for that. Lodging and everything is provided by Homes for All. Same with meals, same with mileage. It's a really fun time. Um, and then there's a homeless service component to that. So if you are working at an agency that's the lead for the point in time count, or you're aware of who the lead is for your community or region, and we would love for your volunteer to participate in that count. They get to count hours towards their hour requirement because it is written into our grant. Um, and then a public speaking activity. That's very open-ended. It really is just to help people get some experience with public speaking. I mean, I go over it in more detail with the member, just to kind of help ease their mind. It's not like they need to do a 1 hour to 2 hour presentation in front of a group of people, but maybe they can meet um, with another local, or like a local community college, like a student, a class, and they talk about the Homes for All program and your organization and what you're doing for the community members there, and who you're serving. It really is a way to just build up that confidence in talking to people about what they're doing, because it is very important, and it's helping spread the word about the services that your organization is providing, and also um, about the Homes for All AmeriCorps program. There are some other training and events that will happen throughout the program year. I know I mentioned the monthly volunteer training. This is that virtual training that happens on or around the 15th of every month. It's typically about an hour. Sometimes I will be able to get some topics to include during that time. I just listed some of the topics that we've been able to have in the past. And again, it's just a way to add some professional development for your volunteers throughout the year. I also talk about any program updates or anything that is a priority for that month. This isn't something that site supervisors have to participate in, but obviously you should know about it if for some reason your volunteers like, I have a meeting with with our program, on Friday from 2 to 3. Just letting you know. There's a large AmeriCorps training called the Kentucky AmeriCorps Accelerator. That's coordinated by Serve Kentucky. That's for all Kentucky AmeriCorps volunteers and programs to get together. It's a lot of fun. We've been able to provide training for AmeriCorps members at that training before. We have a poverty simulation that we bought. And so we were able to set it up and have people, assigned families and go through like a week of someone who may be um, experiencing a really hard time. And so it kind of puts things into perspective. Um, so it's a really good professional opportunity for members. Last year, it was offered virtually just because of the funding cuts that we've all probably felt. Um, this year, I do believe that it will be back in person. And when programs get that information and that date from Serve Kentucky, we will get it out to your members and I'll start working on the logistics and everything like that. So it's typically in the fall. So I'm sure we will get that date really soon. Um, some other things that will happen through the year in the fall, I come out and visit you guys, you and the volunteer, and just get to learn a bit more about the daily tasks that your volunteers are doing and kind of what it looks like for you guys. It's a lot of fun. I just like to come out and hang out with you guys. I will do it in the spring too, if for some reason you need me to. Um, the AmeriCorps week is typically the second week of March, and then we will have an end of year training in June or July of next year. So that's to celebrate our volunteers' accomplishments and everything that we've achieved in the year. Hopefully, it will be back in person. Yeah, yeah. Okay. So now we're going to move right on into supervision and support for your volunteer. Okay, so supervision for your AmeriCorps volunteer. Um, we've talked about providing that comprehensive training and orientation for them whenever they arrive on site, and start with your organizations and with you. We ask that you provide the necessary and needed training throughout the year as well. I will say a lot of times the feedback that I receive from people serving in our program, they love when they get to participate in professional development opportunities. So if you have the ability to send them to a training or a community event, they it really makes their experience. And so I just like to plug that in here. We ask that you review all policies and procedures with the volunteer before they begin serving people directly. That's just to make sure, all grounds are covered, everybody feels comfortable and confident in the next steps to serving more people. If you're able to dedicate some time to meet with your volunteer each week, if not each week, twice a month, again, for some check-ins, a check-in time. There may be just some questions that your volunteer hasn't had a chance to ask you about. This could be that time for them to do so. Serving as their supervisor, coach, mentor, approving their timesheets timely. There will be 2 times in the year that you will complete evaluations, a mid-year evaluation and an end-of-year evaluation. That's set by AmeriCorps at the federal level, and it's to ensure, it's just kind of one of those things that makes a person eligible to receive that education award. So in the winter and in the summer, I will reach out to you guys and have you complete the supervisor portion of the evaluation forms. Please contact me immediately if there are any changes in supervision or any other, um, really anything that happens that you feel like I need to know about, please just give me a call. And just, yeah, regular communication with me. Volunteer evaluations, I just talked about that. I always forget that I do this separately too. Um, so there are the two types of evaluations. So your mid-year and your end of service or end of year evaluation. The top portion is the program performance. So that's me evaluating as a like in the program their performance. And then the second component is the partner site performance, which is there are more questions because your volunteer is with you 90% of the time. I ask that you just include some positive feedback and constructive feedback. That doesn't have to be something negative, but maybe something that you would like to see some improvement or the person work on, as the year goes on. Um, there are just a few, a couple different ways that we can develop and support our volunteers while they're with us. Formal, like those trainings that I mentioned, or professional development opportunities, including your volunteer and staff meetings or retreats that are scheduled. Informal, having that open door policy, obviously with boundaries, making sure that you and your volunteer just understand each other's communication styles, work styles, um, and incorporating some check-ins. Again, they don't have to be super informal or super formal. They can be very relaxed in a way that just helps your volunteer feel comfortable, and just really check in on them as a person. Some other ways that you can support your volunteer over the next year. Um, the living allowance can be increased. We do not ask our partner organizations to do that unless they are obviously able to do that. I just like to share this information in case this is something that you would like to do to kind of make the AmeriCorps position a little bit more appealing. There are some maximums involved, so you can't go over 40,800 for a full-time position and so on. Some of our partner organizations in the past have helped with housing. So I'm thinking of a specific site to help retain a person stay for a second year of service. They will pay a portion of the person's rent or mortgage as long as the payment is made directly to the project manager, the landlord, the mortgage lender, that type of stuff. It can't go directly to the volunteer, but it can go directly to where it needs to go. Same with like rent or like utilities. That could be something that the organization pays a portion to help offset some of those expenses while they're committing, a year of service. Um, Food gifts, so recognition, like Kroger, Walmart, grocery cards or Food City cards. If your organization is doing a order for gear with your agency's logo on it, we would love for you to also include your volunteer so that they can have, they can represent your organization as well. Everybody loves a t-shirt. I love a t-shirt. So, or a coffee cup, ink pen, things like that. And then, that ongoing training. If you are at an organization that will be hosting more than one AmeriCorps volunteer, we just ask that you are equitable and the support that you're providing them. Okay, key policies and procedures. So, the one of the big policies developed and created by AmeriCorps is prohibited activities. So while charging time to the AmeriCorps program, accumulating service hours or training hours or otherwise performing activities supported by the AmeriCorps program or the corporation, staff and members may not engage in any of the following activities. If you are reading through this, you can clearly see that it's a lot of the prohibited activities are around religious or politics. So I share this with site supervisors. I do a training with our AmeriCorps members because it is very important. I'll give you a couple of minutes to just read through these, and then I'll go on to the second part of the prohibited activities. Okay. And the second part of the prohibited activities continued. This is the last part of the list. The big thing is we want people to be active and, um, you know, that's their right. That's not what we're saying. You can exercise this as a private citizen. What we are saying and what AmeriCorps is saying is you cannot charge time doing these things to and acting as an AmeriCorps volunteer, representing the Homes for All program and the organization that you work at. They also cannot recruit, manage, or train volunteers to do any of the prohibited activities. Most of the agencies that we partner with understand this very clearly because of the type of nonprofit that you guys may be. So, Serve Kentucky, our state service commission, does require that all AmeriCorps supervisors complete a online training for prohibited activities. It is now required to be completed annually. So if you are a returning supervisor and you completed it last year, I'm sorry, you will have to complete it again. It takes 45 minutes. It's online. It's free. Tomorrow, I will send out those instructions for you or to you. And then it will generate a completion certificate, or you can send me a screenshot so that I have that on file. And I know it probably doesn't sound like too silly, but these are things that I have to keep to stay compliant so that when we do have our on-site review and we're monitored, I have all of this and that it's documented and we're compliant. The second training that Serve Kentucky requires is AmeriCorps 101. It's the same amount of time, 45 minutes online. It's free. You'll get the completion certificate and then you can email it to me. Or if you are a returning member and it doesn't generate that completion certificate, you can send me that screenshot. And thank you for taking the time to do these trainings for me and just have a better understanding of prohibited activities and AmeriCorps as a whole. There are some limitations for teleservice. So AmeriCorps updated their teleservice policy last year. So no more than 10% can be allocated to teleservice. I wrote down what that breaks down to. That's not really anything that like it's designed in our timesheet template that it will flag. So like a person wouldn't be able to do that. Also, a volunteer should be on site serving the majority of their hours. Teleservice does have to be approved by the program before a volunteer can do anything off site. So we would be in communication anyways. I think it's just important to know this up front. Transportation and mileage. I think that it's just best practice to explain to the volunteer if the position has any transportation expectations up front, like during that interview process. So it's clear, crystal clear. And if they are if they are providing transportation, we ask that mileage reimbursement for client transport, home visits, and the personal vehicle is provided to them. And we ask that you keep a copy of their valid driver's license and auto insurance on file at your site. That doesn't apply to all of our positions, but it's important to know that. AmeriCorps branding, if you're creating any recruitment materials, business cards for your member, we ask that the AmeriCorps logo be on there. You can help them create their email signature so that it has the AmeriCorps logo as well. We love for our organizations to identify as an AmeriCorps partner. So most of our partner sites at this point have a sign that says AmeriCorps signing here. It's typically up front, like where the front door is, or in a common area. Same with the prohibited activities poster. We do provide gear to our volunteers at the beginning of their service year or when their service term. Sometimes, like behind my desk, I've got like the AmeriCorps logo and stuff. So people they get very creative, and I love seeing it. Like if they're in an office space that maybe has like a bulletin board, or they have an old picture frame and they print out the AmeriCorps logo and they hang it up. There are there are easy, cheap ways to have the AmeriCorps branding up where your volunteer is going to be at in your office space. Safety, just anticipate and plan for any safety issues that could happen or occur during the program year. Like I mentioned, we do have a workers' compensation policy where our AmeriCorps volunteers are covered. If an incident were to happen, please notify me immediately. A claim form will be sent to you guys. It needs to be completed and then submitted to Kimi. Also, just checking in on your members' mental health. The work that you guys do on a daily basis and the service that they're going to be providing for the next year is tough, and there are challenges. And so we just ask that you remember that your volunteer is a person first and just really check in on them. Our program, we do have standards of conduct, and it is listed in their member service agreement. I go over it extensively during orientation. So there are 3 different levels of standards of conduct. So one being like I don't want to say some like minor things, then 2's a little bit worse. And then like 3 would be like, you got to be exited and released from the program. We have a corrective action plan. If for some reason you have observed any violations of the standards of conduct being violated, so we would be in communication on how to handle situations like that appropriately. We've also created a performance-based action plan. So maybe not a violation has happened with their standards of conduct, but maybe something just kind of needs to be um, improved. And so you could use that form for something like that. Typically, when situations like this happen, I'm usually talking to you guys and we work this out together. Um, if there becomes a point in time where a person needs to be released from AmeriCorps service, it can only happen at the program level and documentation will be needed early. So that's why I've kind of incorporated some documentation throughout the program year, starting with that volunteer and site expectation form. So that documentation is like already happening. Then you have like, our standards of conduct, you have the corrective action plan. Friday, tomorrow, I will send you the PDF of your site supervisor manual, and it will have these documents all together for you. Um, yeah, like I said, we will, in situations like this, we're talking pretty regularly. Um, Something we added last year regarding any living allowance increases. So if your volunteer were to exit between the start of the program year and December 31st, HHCK would issue a refund of the balance of the remaining increased amount to the site. So whatever portion is remaining. Um, if the volunteer exits service between January 1st and March 31st, we would issue a 50% refund of the unpaid balance to the site. Again, it's just the increased portion. So if you increased it by $4,000 and 2,000 have been paid, then we would give you 1,000 back. If a volunteer exits service between April 1st and July 31st, no refund will be issued to the site. Again, this is just if an organization pays an increased amount to, again, increase the living allowance, the base living allowance. It's also written on the living allowance form, increase form. So that's not like the last place you'll ever see that. Okay, wrapping up. So next steps. In August, I'm going to send partner site agreements. First, I'll send you an email just kind of giving all of our site supervisors a heads up that your site agreements will be coming out. If it does require the executive director's signature, then you got that heads up and you can make sure that like everything is like cohesive and we get everything kind of put in place. Partner site agreement lists all of our policies and procedures, a lot of everything that we've talked about today. Then if you are a new supervisor, I will also be setting up your America Learns account before September. I'll give you a heads up as well. Just because that welcome email I think is time sensitive. So I don't want it to be something that you missed, or maybe it went to your spam or junk folder. So I'll send that to you. The On3 Learned trainings, please, whenever I send out those instructions, if you could work that into your schedules so that I have either the screenshot or the completion certificate on file for you saying that you've completed it before your your volunteer starts. Within the first 2 weeks of your volunteer start of service, we ask that you complete that volunteer site expectation agreement. Again, that really outlines what is expected of them and their weekly schedule. And then site contribution, those invoices will be sent out in September when your volunteers start, or if your volunteer starts later, you're not going to receive an invoice until the position is filled. So we don't just like blanket send those out. So um, I just wanted to say that. If you need a quarterly payment plan, that is available. We just hired our new finance manager. So right now, our executive director, Adrian, has been handling our finance and like our invoicing and things like that. So you will see a new name, a new face when those invoices start rolling out in the next few months. Um, Other things, just remembering that the program year starts September 1st. Orientation with the program with me will be the end of September for your volunteer to attend. Um, then in the fall, later in the fall, the Kentucky AmeriCorps Accelerator will be happening once that is sent out by Serve Kentucky. I'll make sure that that gets to your volunteers. And then also happening will be our site visits with both you and the volunteer. It's just a fun way to hang out and get to know everybody better. Here again is just our contact information. I'm really your first point of contact when it comes to any general program questions, volunteer questions, support, training. Adrian right now is our point of contact for site contribution and HHCK membership. And later I will make the I will welcome our new finance manager once she gets through training and things like that. But before the program year starts, you'll have her contact information too. Then our office phone number, our website, and other helpful links on our website for you guys. And then I'm going to leave the floor open for any questions. And if not, thank you guys so much for participating. And yeah, I'm just a call away, and we can't wait to get the new program year started. So thank you guys for joining today's call.